You are listening to Season 7 of the award-winning Christian Outdoors podcast with your host, Pete Rogers. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Christian Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Pete Rogers, and today I'm really looking forward to this conversation with Mr. Clark Bartee. He's the executive director and founder of HighGround Outfitters. But most important role, being a child of God, husband to Hannah and father to Boone. Clark Bartee lives with his family in East Tennessee, and he's been in ministry and outdoor recreation for 10 years, with the majority of his vocation in Christian retreats and in Christian ministry. After God opened doors to guide in Montana and Western North Carolina, I'm interested to hear about that commute. But from Montana and Western North Carolina, he is merging his passion for Christian ministry and formation with professional guiding to offer life-giving fly fishing trips and retreats. HighGround Outfitters operates in Northeast Tennessee on the South Holston River in, see if I say this right, Watauga. That's probably close.
Watauga.
Dang it. Watauga River, as well as offering trips in surrounding areas of Western North Carolina and Southwest Virginia. Mr. Clark Bartee, thank you for joining me here on Christian Outdoors, buddy.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad we were able to make it happen today.
Yeah, me too. So let's start by you just giving an overview of yourself to the listeners, and then we'll dive into some of this stuff about yourself.
Cool. Yeah. So a little bit about me. My wife and I, we've been married 5 years. We live in Northeast Tennessee in the Johnson City, Bristol area in a small town called Elizabethton. We've been living there for about 3 years, learned how to pick up guiding in the area. It's pretty technical, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of the fishing aspects of what we do. But it's a pretty technical area as far as the rivers go. We, like you said, we guide on 2 rivers there. They're incredible, world-class rivers. But yeah, so we've lived here for about 3 years. We've moved around quite a bit in our marriage from Western North Carolina. We were living south of Asheville. And before that, like you mentioned, I lived in Montana, and then Lynchburg, Virginia. So my wife and I met at Liberty University, graduated in 2017 with a degree in church ministry and Christian leadership. And before that, I'm from the middle of North Carolina. So if you look at the middle of North Carolina, go about an hour away from Raleigh. That's where I'm from. Okay. So that's a little bit about where my background is.
Okay. All right. So as we said pre-recording, Clark, I want to talk a little bit about fly fishing before we get into the ministry aspect. And that's because we don't get a lot of fly anglers on here. And like I told you before, I am, I look like I know what I'm doing when I'm fly fishing. I can cast with really well, but I don't have a clue what I'm doing. There's a lot more to fly fishing than being able to cast a fly rod. A lot of people just stop there and it is it takes a good bit of practice to learn how to cast a fly rod. So you talked about it being technical. Explain that to a non-fly angler. What do you mean that these are technical rivers to fish? Because I hear difficult when you say that.
Yeah. I would say that fly fishing in of itself is not the most technical. Like you said, practice. The rivers that I'm on, the South Holston and Watauga rivers, are considered tailwater rivers. And so a tailwater is different than a freestone. Okay. When you think about Cashiers, North Carolina, when you think about Boone or any of these mountain streams or creeks, that would be considered a freestone because it's free flowing from the mountains. Okay. Tailwater is, it comes out of the release of water from a dam for hydroelectric power. So these 2 rivers, when I say technical, there's a couple different areas for that. So number one, the way that we can float our drift boats through there depends on the water flow. One river fishes better one day, one fishes better than the other day. There's also the type of bug life. So in small mountain creeks, you have water rushing all the time, and trout can pick up on any bug or food source. Here, there's a lot of slow water sections. It really just depends on which area of the river. But all that to be said, the bug life is very different than that of a mountain creek. And I would say, too, the flows affect that as well. The one incredible thing is these rivers here in Northeast Tennessee offer us a hatch. So in fly fishing, we're fishing for a hatching insect of some kind, whether we're fishing underwater, the nymph stage, or what we call dry fly fishing, which would be the emergent stage of the insect. So here, you'll see blankets of different insects hatching, from the sulfur hatches on the South Holston to blue-wing olives, which are all small mayflies, to midges and others. So when I say it gets technical, it gets a little more technical as far as the bugs you use and the type of fishing. So the other thing that makes it technical is the pressure. There's a lot of guides here, a lot of boats going down the river. There are a ton of trout. There's thousands of trout, so it's really productive. But I would say that if you're coming here for the first time to our region, it's going to be more difficult with the presentation. I would say that's the biggest key in most of fly fishing. But for us here in Northeast Tennessee, I mean, it is good presentations, light leader and tippet, so light line for non-fly anglers. We use fluorocarbon primarily is what I use. And these fish are tricky. They see boats and flies every single day. And they have time to look at it and say whether they want to eat it or not. So when I say technical, it's not impossible, but I would say that it requires more patience, more skill, and more of that presentation cast has to be more tuned in.
So translated to the novice, don't expect to catch a lot of fish unless you're a really good angler.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I would say it can be a little difficult for the first timer here.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So hard to catch fish. I did not realize these rivers were big enough to float on, because I haven't looked up the rivers. I probably should have done that ahead of time. So this isn't wade fishing. This is all drift boat fishing.
So you can do both, but just the simple of it, the Watauga fishes well, both low and high water. Low water, you can get your boat through there. It's going to be a little bumpy, but we do it all the time. And you can wade fish that at low water. You can wade fish the South Holston at low water, but when it goes high water, that's when you can send your boat through. So the South Holston, you can't float it on low water like you can the Watauga. So it really is just river dependent. Like I said, the water levels coming out of the dam, but you can wade fish both. You just have to pay attention to the dam generation release. That'd be the only thing.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. You're out there wade fishing, and all of a sudden they start turning water loose. Well, I'm done.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be frustrating. You using 4 weights, 3 weight rods? What are you using?
Yeah, so we use in the boat, because a lot of times we'll turn over some heavy rigs. We'll use your typical 9'5" weight, which is what I consider, your most basic rod outfit. Some of our rods are 10'4" weights for just extra sensitivity in the tip of the rod, for light tippet protection. But yeah, anywhere from that 4 or 5 weight for streamer fishing, which I don't do a ton of. A lot of anglers we take are novice and have never fished before. But we'll do some bigger streamer rigs on 7 weights, things like that. Okay. But most of the time small.
Okay. Well, one of the things, again, we talked about pre-recording, and I want the listeners to know that is where I struggle the most. I think a lot of inexperienced or underexperienced fly anglers struggle are with wet flies, the submergibles, the nymphs, and the midgets and things of that nature. Even with the indicators, with the ripples on the water, I have a hard time even seeing the indicators. I guess it's my old eyes, or I'm just not focused in on it or anything. But, unless it's something that I can really see, I have a very difficult time noticing a strike or a bite. Help me with that.
Yeah, I would say, so you're using like a bobber, like a thingamabobber, or Oros, and like you use like a ball indicator most of the time.
Yeah, or yarn or something, something, because I try to keep it small so I'm not spooking fish, but I still need to be able to see it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, there's some options to do some high vis. A lot of companies are making neon green. Really, the biggest thing that I found, even for me guiding, can be the most difficult is sometimes putting way too many weighted flies on, or too much weight, and it just constantly is dragging bottom. So it's really the biggest thing for me in those currents is, it's tough. Maybe it's the eyes, but I would say the most difficult thing is really just making sure that you're not overweighting it. It's just a fine balance. And usually those more floating, like bobber one style, those, it takes a lot for those to go down. So more so the yarn.
Yeah. And that's where I think I'm missing the soft bites, right? because
Yeah.
it's moving with the current. And if you're on YouTube, you see my
Right.
hand here. It's moving with the current, and then you get a little,
Uh-huh.
boop, and it's like, well, was that the current or was that a fish?
Right. Yeah.
You know, and you set the hook. Well, I gotta throw it
Hmm.
out there again now because there wasn't a fish there. Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's no telling how many thousands of fish I've missed because it's just
Oh yeah.
so hard for Pete to notice those bites. How, and I'm still amazed that these guides, and I'm putting you in that group, can tie on a 22 size hook. I can't even see it in your hand. I mean, and I don't know how the fish sees it coming through the water. On top of
Yeah.
that, it just amazes me. So, what's the smallest flies that you typically use?
It's not uncommon at all. I use a lot of size 22. I tie up a lot of my own midges and nymphs. Um, I'll go size 22 to 24. I don't really mess around with size 26. I just don't feel the need to. But yeah, 24 is about as low as I'll go.
Oh God, that's so small. It's so small. I'd have to have, I mean, you're really using some fine tippets there in order to get it through the
Yeah.
eye of the hook, right?
Hmm.
So again, for the listener who may not know,
Yeah.
give a comparison. What did a size 24 is the size of what? So
Yeah. I would say I'd think it'd be like a crumb of a biscuit. I mean, it's tiny. I mean, think about like just your fingernail. Um, an inch long would be about a size 14. And so if a size 14 is about an inch, then a 24, as we go down the scale, I mean, it's very micro. It's
yeah,
not even a centimeter. I mean, they're really small hooks and barbs.
yeah, and so again, for the novice, the higher the number, the smaller the
Hmm.
hook is, and it still amazes me that smaller hook can stay in a fish.
Yeah.
You know, that it doesn't pull out. So that's just an amazing thing.
Yeah.
How long of a tippet of a leader and a tippet are you using for these micro midges and nymphs?
Yeah. Yeah, for my standard kind of low water, I'm fishing like a 10-foot leader
Oh
to
wow.
my indicator. So we have a little bit more distance. So when I said it's technical, you got to really be more fine tuned on casting a longer leader.
Mhm.
Um, and then I'd say about a 10-foot leader, and then we're using 6x tippet kind of as my standard. 5x on high water if we're floating a different type of rig called a bottom bounce. I'll use a 5x. You can maybe get away with a little bit, but I tend to lean on the 6x. I don't
Okay.
really go 7x because I feel like people will just, as soon as they set the hook, it's easy to break that. But yeah, that's about what we're using. And then on high water rigs, it really is dependent, but most of the time we're fishing 10 foot and up on
Okay.
leaders.
Okay. And the reason I say that because the rivers that I have fished in Western North Carolina, which is not that far
Hmm.
from where I live,
Yeah.
it's basically roll casting. I mean,
Yes.
there's so much canopy, you cannot
Mm-mm.
get a super long leader out there. You're just flipping it and flipping it. So you don't have hardly any fly line in the water. It's all you're basically casting a leader and you're rolling it upstream and then mending and mending and mending and then doing it again and just keep doing that. Um, and that's why I ask about how long the leaders are, because I find it when you have that much leader and all you're doing is backwards roll cast,
Hmm.
there's not enough weight to get it out there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to do that. Is that me or is that just normal?
No, I would say that's true. I mean, and most of the time in the mountains, we're using that 7.5 to 9 foot leader. Where we're
Mhm.
at, we're using 10 to 11 foot a lot of times to the indicator. That's where it comes down to having some good forward taper, fly line, and also just practice.
Yeah.
Getting in the yard and practicing.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I got one soapbox to get on about fly
Okay.
stuff. Um, and I don't mind dropping names. So I was up in Vermont a few years ago and I happened
Uh-huh.
upon the original Orvis store. I didn't even know it was
Oh yeah.
there. And I went
Uh-huh.
in there and I was like, oh, that's so freaking cool. The Orvis store. Yeah. Okay. Why do fly reels? I'm talking about reels
Hmm.
have no drag system. It's basically a spool. Why are they so daggum expensive? They're
I get.
hundred, 600, 700, $800. It's a spool, Clark.
Hmm.
There's nothing there. There's no drag. There's no clicker. I mean, there is the clicker, of course, but you know what I'm saying? And it's 700. Why do they do it that much? Is it just for exclusivity? Is it, I mean, what's the logic behind that?
I would say it's kind of like how a golfer likes their expensive putter or driver. I wouldn't say that it's necessary. I think it's more of a thing that, like you said, exclusivity, aesthetic. I don't know, but none of my reels are that expensive because I'm mainly trout fish. If I'm throwing down on a muskie or even smallmouth,
that's different because you got a very heavy duty drag system incorporated in there, which is difficult to build on those scales. And I get that. But if you're using one that's designed for a 4 or 5 weight rod where you're palming the reel instead of using a drag as an example, or the line, and it's still $600. Like, you gotta be kidding me. And people buy them.
I know.
And as well as I do, I told you I was on my soapbox about this. That they got, I don't know, 25 cents in it because it's just a billet of aluminum drilled out. And, they got really nice ball bearings. They're smooth and all that, but still it's 600.
Yeah. I don't think I have a reel in my collection now. I used to have a little bit more expensive taste. I sold a lot of my rods, my more high-end rods, there's a difference in that high end and low end.
Yeah, rods. I know. We're going to get
a little bit different.
We're on reels now. Yeah.
But I would say reels are, it's a little unnecessary. Most of mine, Lamson makes a really good low price reel. That's what I have on most of my rods. And same with, I have a couple here and there, but the 7-800, if we're talking trout fishing, you don't need that.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you say low price, you're still talking hundreds.
Yeah. A couple hundred.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go for there's some beginner outfits out there where it's almost like a plastic reel. You probably will, it'll make it, but I wouldn't fish that long term.
Right.
I would upgrade.
But I would also say that if you're getting started, and the reason I'm saying this is because there's a barrier to entry in fly fishing. There's a huge barrier to entry, in that you have to have money to even decide if you like it. Right? I mean, and secondhand is the way to go if you're just getting into it, and that's just my opinion. Buy it off somebody who bought one and they're upgrading. Buy one from them, or yard sales, are good places to get them. Moving sales, people are moving. They got 1,863 fly rods and they can't move but 1,800 of them. So now the rods are a lot different because you're fighting the fish with the rod versus the drag system. And as you said earlier, the sensitivity of the tip and blah, blah, blah. Explain. We're going to stay with the same length. Okay. With that standard 9-foot rod, explain the difference in sensitivity and backbone and castability and all that between the rods.
Yeah. That's where I would say a 9-foot's kind of the golden standard, or has become that. As far as length, 8.5, you go within 6 inches, fine. But I would say that length is probably the kind of standard. And it's just because in order to cast it, to have the drag-free drifts, a lot of times even small creek in, Western Carolina, or even around here, we have plenty of small mountain creeks just surrounding our tailwater rivers. I like having a drag-free drift. I like being able to stack line. It's a tool. So being able to, use the tool effectively, I would say 9-foot is the best. As far as like you're talking really small creeks, brook trout, wild fishing, 7.5, those are fine because you're not fishing a ton of leader. You're not casting a ton of line out. Exactly. So, there's different types of fly rods. There's graphite, there's slow action graphite, there's fast action, there's bamboo, of course, traditional, and fiberglass. So every one of them has a different action from slow to fast. A lot of beginning anglers, I would recommend on a medium to fast action rod, just because it's forgiving in the cast. If your casting stroke is fine tuned and you're wanting a fast action rod, go for it. And it's kind of both. It's a pendulum, just like anything. So it depends on how you like to cast the rod. So I would say that 9-foot's the best. 10-foot actually gets you some greater distance. I find that casting a 10-foot rod is a little bit easier at times than a 9-foot, but going with a 10-foot rod and some of those creeks and things like you're talking about, plenty of USA fly fishing teams use it for European style nymphing, but it definitely adds to the frustration by the end of the day, because you got a 10-foot rod and the tree clearing is,
Just
much lower.
Yeah, super tight.
Yeah.
Super tight. And we won't get into European nymphing, but that's a whole we could do an entire show on that. And we probably want to do one day where we do a show completely on the technicality of fishing, drives nymph versus European nymph versus American nymphs and midges and blah, 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 kind of stuff. But so you and your wife have decided to take this passion for fly fishing and to turn it into a ministry.
So I have just kind of to get back into my story a little bit, because that's where this all begins, is where God's taken me on this journey of faith for a long time. When I was young, I've felt called to ministry. Looking back now, I think a lot of people, I think we're all as believers called into ministry. It just depends on the capacity and the amount and what have you. But I felt called into ministry. I went to Liberty University for that reason. I kind of ran from that calling for a long time. I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do. I went to Liberty to start in a history program. And I told the Lord, I was like, hey, isn't this good enough that I just went to a Christian school for you? And so I was doing God a favor that I'm going to a private Christian school. So I go there, though. And after a year in, I just fell in love with serving full time. I fell in love. I've worked at a Christian camp in North Carolina called Caraway. I worked there for 5 summers. I attended there for 5 or 7 summers as a kid. And so I just fell in love with the outdoors too while I was at Liberty. So I worked at the campus outfitter, renting mountain bikes, canoes, kayaks, backpacking gear. And in college, I got deep into backpacking, and that kind of led into fly fishing, and did a lot of long distance trail running. But I got into fly fishing. It's funny.
Whoa. You slipped that in there. Long distance trail running.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
I don't do a lot anymore at all.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. God has healed you, my son.
I did a little bit.
Okay. I got to let that go for a second, because I almost fell out of my chair when you said that. All right. So go ahead. I
was inundated with the outdoors, and, Liberty is in Lynchburg, Virginia. The Blue Ridge Mountains are 20, 30 minutes away. So I had brook trout 30 minutes from campus. And so one thing that made it very easy for me to get into the sport was, I had, on a Tuesday afternoon, I could be in a creek in less than an hour and just be after them. So, and when you're in college, you have all the time in the world. So anyway, I served for several years in camp and outdoor ministry. I switched my degree to Christian leadership and church ministry, and focused a lot of, I did a focus in youth ministry. And so I worked at a couple different churches volunteering. And then what led to me wanting to get into guiding and to start this, I think, as I said, there was a little bit of rub and push and pull with the Lord on going into ministry vocationally. I just didn't really want it for my life. I didn't see myself doing it. And then, I don't know, it all clicked for me. And the Lord started opening doors and growing me and maturing me and putting more responsibility on my shoulders. And so by senior year, I was like, well, Lord, I'll do what you want me to do, but I desperately want to go out west. This was in 2017. The Lord was, put a desire in my heart to go out west. And so I assumed that meant Alaska, and I wanted to go to Alaska, called a bunch of different places. And I was like, nothing worked out for me. And so I decided to go back. I was assistant director of the summer camp, and was there for another summer, and then went into year-round ministry, doing kind of like a gap year at the camp I was working at. And halfway through, I still had that desire in my heart to go out west and be a guide. And we went to a national convention for camps in Colorado Springs. I saw a guy with a Sims hat on, and naturally, I don't know if it was the Holy Spirit leading me to talk to this guy, or if it was just the fishing camaraderie wanting to chat it up. And I started chatting with him, and he was next door neighbors with a guy who runs a ministry for pastors, ministry leaders out in Montana. And so that idea really is not original to me. I would never claim that. I think a lot of ministries are replication. I would say that every one of them has a different identity, of course. I lost a student pastor when I was growing up to some anger issues and alcoholism. I ended up, seeing that and seeing the frailty of leaders at times at an early age. And so going out west, I got a chance I did that in 2018. I moved out to Bighorn River and guided for a ministry called Refuge Foundation. Brian Carpenter started some excellent ministry. But while I was there, that's when a girl from class piqued my interest. And so we pen palled, wrote letters, and I was like, all right, Lord, I think you're opening the door. And I've been praying about marriage. So I was 23 and I decided to move back to North Carolina to pursue her. So I only spent a year out west guiding, but it gave me a lot to learn. I mean, I learned how to row a boat. I served people every day. I learned great hospitality, servanthood, and spent a lot of time guiding and just rowing a boat and learned how to do it out there. So came back, worked at camp for a little bit. My wife, now she was working in Charlotte, North Carolina for a ministry. And it was at the camp that I saw a youth pastor baptizing his own kids. And I was like, Lord, that just is enticing to actually be one-on-one with students and to be in their world. So we picked up, moved, got married in 2020, lived in Hendersonville, North Carolina, where I was a youth pastor for 2 years at a church. And I guided part-time for Headwaters Outfitters down in Brevard, Rosman area. So that gives you the long form of kind of my story. And eventually we moved to East Tennessee in 2021. So yeah, that's the long story. As far as how and why the ministry started, there's a couple things there. Number one, it just, I saw the frailty of leaders. I saw it out west. I saw need. And also being a person from the Southeast, I'm like, we are in the Bible Belt. And a lot of pastors can't afford a $1,500 or more trip to go to Montana for rest. And I think what they charge and what they do out west is incredible. But most guys don't have the bandwidth or the finances to make that happen. And I was like, this dream has been in my wife and I's heart for a long time to serve leaders. And even when I was in the church working, and I'm currently a student director now at a church in Johnson City, Tennessee.
Okay.
What I've learned about leaders, for me at least, is sometimes it's not even burnout. It's just discouragement. You know, you're managing and leading people, you're caring for them. And so I saw that when I was in leadership in North Carolina, and it just started to grow from there. And that's why, you know, in 2024, we started the ministry.
Okay. Yeah, because you mentioned that there's a lot of things there that I want to ask you about, Clark.
Yeah.
One was, you're right. A lot of pastors can't afford to fly to Montana, pay $1,500 for a trip, and then fly home, lodging, food, blah, blah, blah. Then you're now you're pushing $3,000, right? And because number one, we feel guilty that we just $3,000 on ourselves instead of the family, and and the whole time we're there, we feel guilty that we've left our parishioners, we've left our community, but you see that even when they go local, trying to go on a day fishing trip on their day off, if they ever take it on their day off, to say, you know, I'm gonna go fishing today, or I'm gonna go play golf today, or I'm gonna go hunting today. The guilt that overcomes them, because there's always somebody who needs you when you're in pastoral leadership. Always. And if you have a 200 member church, you have 200 bosses.
Yeah.
At least they think so.
That's one way of looking at it, for sure. I've never thought about it like that, but I agree.
Yeah, that's how they look at it. Well, you work for me, and when I need you, you need to be here. And it's a very stressful and all-consuming career. But as we said before show, and if anybody who's listening to this has listened to Christian Outdoors for any period of time, on several occasions, to have a pastor's retreat for the whole purpose of doing what Clark is doing, and that is to try to minister to church leaders, pastors, associate pastors, youth pastors. You know, those in what I term professional ministry. In other words, they get paid to do it, not the volunteers necessarily. And man, getting them to commit to it, even when it's free, to say, I need you, or I would like for you to come Sunday after church, and you're going to leave Wednesday right after breakfast. So give me 2 days. That's it. You get here Sunday. I need you Monday and Tuesday, and you can leave Wednesday morning. They just will not do it, even if it's free, and they can drive to it, you know, in the same state. And so my question to you is, before we start badgering the pastors for not taking advantage of this, which is going to happen if you're listening to this, pastors, how do you get them to commit to coming? Or is it just luck? They just show up, or what's the deal there?
Yeah, a lot of prayer. I asked the Lord a lot, who do we need to serve? And so just to let everyone else know on the show really quick too, we do serve like camp directors, nonprofit ministry directors, people like that as well.
Good.
And
Good.
I do serve Christian business leaders. So we're doing trips for C12 and organizations like that also.
Okay.
And I can explain more of the technicality of our ministry later, but I would say to answer that question, I think a lot of it is just, Lord, who do we need to pursue? Who do we need to serve? And it's slow. It's a slow game. It's not all this big one and done ministry of, hey, we're going to gather 200 pastors for this thing. That's not how I see our ministry focus. And I don't think that's really effective. I would say that for us, it's kind of just building slow relationships, building trust before they even get on the boat, which is tough. They know that if they get on that boat, there may be something exposed. And I think that's what sometimes can be a hindrance is, what is this person going to find out about me? Or are they going to see that I'm human? And I wouldn't say that's everyone. I'll say this too really quick, Pete. When it comes to the ministry itself, not every pastor that comes on our boat is going to be burnout, ready to quit ministry. A lot of them, I just like to provide them a great day. I think that's what keeps them going. So I would say that for us, what gets people in the boat and gets them coming is just building that slow relationship, pursuing them, and caring for them in that way. So it is tough though. I will 100% agree. I don't know what it is. I think it could be a multitude of things. We're taking out the finance one. We're making the day trips for free. We are, and kind of like you mentioned it. Well, if it's free, why don't you come? I think sometimes it could be a bit of a fear factor as far as, what are they going to find out about me? Or do I really need to take the time to do this? I'm actually doing okay. And that's sometimes probably a hindrance too. And that's why we say, we're here for every leader in every season. Doesn't matter if you're burnout, on the verge of burnout, or if you don't even know what's going on, you're just having a good time. I think that could be a hindrance too. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Or you just going to go, or you just want to go fishing?
Yeah,
we're here.
Exactly.
Yeah. I find that when you get multiple pastors together, they are so guarded.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you can see it's not the shield of faith going up, by the way. You can see this shield go up. And they start this. This has been now. If you're a pastor listening, this is Pete's experience. Okay. It's hidden, and there's no studies that say that this is just my experience, having served as a pastor for a long time and tried to minister to pastors. Is one of the first things they ask is, so where's your church? How big is it? Right. First question. And me being somewhat smart aleck at times, I would say, well, it's about 4,500 square feet. I'd give that pause. Then so they go, and you say square feet. I mean, I don't know how many people come, but the building, how big's my church? It's about 4,500 square feet. That's all I know to tell you. As far as attendance, we got 13 people come now. And what I've always so there's that, and then as you said, they don't like to be vulnerable because we are the caretakers. We're the ones who take care of other people. We're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to be invincible. We're the ones that are constantly pouring out into people. But what we need is people to pour into us.
That's right.
So that we have something to give out. Because when the pot's empty, the pot's empty.
That's right.
Right. And sooner or later, you're going to have to put something back in it. So I see that they're afraid of the competition. Right. And they don't want to have to justify that they're in a small church and they're working their way up, or they, small by numbers is what I mean. And it's sad that there's that kind of a feeling about it because we're not competing in each other. We're all building the kingdom. Right. But that's the number one thing I see is that they don't want they don't want to feel like they have to talk about what's going on in their church.
Yeah.
And this is where I have failed in trying to have these events is, one of the things that I have said is we are not going to talk about the size of our churches or the denomination you come from. I don't care if you're Southern Baptist or if you're United Methodist or Global Methodist or any one of the 1,463 Presbyterians that are out there, or the independents or non-doms, whatever. It's irrelevant. We're all serving for the kingdom, right? And but my gosh, my thing is, I think it's guilt. I can't justify being away for myself. and by being away from their family and being away from their community. I know many pastors who are supposed to have either Mondays or Fridays off, and they haven't taken a day off in 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. And when their family finally says, we're going on vacation this week, they take their work with them.
Yeah.
And they're working the whole time they're supposed to be on vacation. They got their laptop. They're making phone calls because Aunt Betty's having her toenails removed. They got to call and check on her at the hospital. Because if I don't, when I come back, I'm going to get called to a deacon meeting. Why didn't you check on Billy Bob when his garden dried up? It's going to be the smallest things that people complain about. And it makes it very, very hard. And so that's what I think is guilt and also self-preservation. They don't want to have to deal with the fallout.
That's a good answer. Self-preservation. That is the best description of it.
From their so I've even tried things like congregation. You owe your pastor a break. So you need to insist that he goes on this event. We're not going to renew your contract unless you go. Whatever you have to do. I wish they would.
Yeah.
Whatever you have to do in order to, if you want your pastor to be a good pastor, and when I say, I mean church leaders, all those areas that you talked about, they have to be able to get away and recharge.
Yeah, I agree. Look at Christ. He did it multiple times, leaving the disciples just to go and be with the Father. And I think that when it comes to our ministry and what makes us unique and special is, I tell people a lot, it's like the old show Seinfeld, right? Where they claimed the show Seinfeld was a show about nothing. I think our ministry is like that. It's like a ministry of presence where we don't require you to fill out certain forms or go to this certain Bible study or this or that. Pastors are pouring out content left and right. They're ministering to others left and right. And so the last thing our ministry wants to do is make you come and do a lot of field work. Now, granted, do we have a couple things here and there for spiritual practices? Absolutely. But a lot of what we want to offer is just the simplicity of relationship, prayer, and asking the Holy Spirit to guide our conversations. That's what our ministry does. And what we've seen is just a multitude of leaders be able to let their hair down, let their shoulders rest a little bit. You can see the physical countenance change a little bit on a man or, after these trips. And so I think for, what you said, it makes total sense. That's what I wanted your opinion on. I love that word, self-preservation. I think that's the biggest issue is we want to preserve our inner person because we're scared if someone finds out we're not who we say we are, this or that, or we have sin in our life, or we'll get kicked out or this or that. I'll go on a 2-second rant and I'll share some statistics. And these are from I'm not going to name the exact name, but they are reputable. He's a Christian licensed therapist in North Carolina, runs a retreat center. Me and this man have developed a cool relationship. He's been very kind. He specifically has served pastors, ministry leaders for the last 20 years. That's who he serves to help them with burnout and everything. These are not Barna statistics. Okay. Barna has tons of great statistics. In that 40 percentile range is what we're seeing leave or wanting to leave. But this guy's statistics are on burnout specifically. And what he shared with me is that 80% of the men who come to him burn out, and he does like a 2-week-long session, 80% of them that come to him burn out come from single parent households. So there's a deep issue in the heart of that man, right? That they have not addressed for years. Burnout to me is a symptom. It's a side effect. It's an issue of the heart, unresolved issues. That's what even John Eldredge describes it as, unresolved issue of the heart. And then 80% of them have suffered and struggled through that. 50% of the men he have seen come to him over the last 20 years for burnout issues and things like that have been sexual abuse. So these young men were sexually abused. And so we have pastors and ministry leaders in our pulpits who have unresolved issues. Now, I'm not saying that they're in sin or doing anything wrong. I think sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, Pete, I would say sometimes ministry leaders get into positions because of an aching in their soul. And they also see a problem to be solved. So I'm not saying all of them are some traumatic issue or injury or this or that, but I would say by and large, from those statistics, it tells us that a lot of guys who are prone to burnout probably are not willing to share the hardships that they've been facing. And I think that maybe, doing something like fly fishing isn't therapy, but in a way it is. And I would say that what we do is we don't provide you with the clinical counselor. I can find you some, and I know plenty who would love to help and serve a ministry leader right now. But I would say what we do is almost kind of more proactive to help you on the front end. If you come to us burnout, we'll help you. We'll talk with you. We'll counsel. We have the right people. But I would say that for us as a ministry, we're proactive in trying to provide you space with the Lord. A lot of times in the boat, there's times where I just don't talk. I can talk all day. Anyone can. But we just don't talk. I let you be with the Lord. We pray before every trip. And then even in our conversations, I ask some kind of engaging questions the Lord's prompted me with to ask them. So a lot of what we do is really to try and proactively help. But also, like I said, we're there to have fun. Not everyone's hurt. Not everyone's burning out. Not everyone's busting 60 hours a week. I think the world has come a long way as far as things are going, but it's still not solved. So I know that's a long soapbox answer, but those statistics
that's
are
a great answer. That's a great answer. And you said 60 hours a week. Most pastors hit that by Wednesday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
if you put it all on paper.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that congregants don't understand is a pastor is, and again, it doesn't matter what title comes in front of pastor, lead pastor, senior pastor, associate, youth, whatever. But a pastor is on 24/7, 365. We are on call all the time, which means we never really leave emotionally, mentally. Our brain never rests. We're always thinking about, well, they got this going on. We had this death, and all of us have these horror stories of where you have 3 deaths in a week and 6 people having surgery, and Sunday's coming. You better have a sermon ready. So, and you better hit a home run again. We don't like bunt singles from the pulpit, and those happen 2, 3, 4 times a year on average. My experience, speaking of my experience in the pastorate, and there's always somebody that's you just can't make happy, right? There's always that thorn in the flesh. I want to speak to that in just a minute as well. But I just wish, Clark, that there was a way that we could build into these contracts that pastors sign with their congregations that says you must take this many weeks off a year. You must. It's required. We're not giving you can take 4 weeks if you want it. No, you are taking 4 weeks off, 2 of which have to be, and they have to be consecutive, at least 2 weeks consecutive and another 2 weeks consecutive. And you can take others as needed, right? But these are required. These are the minimum. And my suggestion is that the only time when I was in pastor, when I felt like I was away, and was when I went on a multi-state trip where I could not go back if somebody passed or something happened. I had people set up to take over, but I was 2,000 miles away.
Yeah.
And it was still day 3 or 4 before I felt myself relax, and I don't know, man. It's a very hard nut to crack. It really is.
It is. And everyone needs something different, Everyone needs something different. I think the biggest thing is every leader's bandwidth is different. And the Lord loves every single one of them. Every pastor is loved by the Lord, and every church member is loved by the Lord. I think that's the biggest thing too, is members to realize he has not hit some kind of spiritual nirvana with the Lord that you have not. I mean, he is a man who is giving his life to serve. And there are women ministry leaders, of course, also. But when we're talking about like a pastor, senior leader, or anyone really in ministry roles like this, they're giving their life away. And oftentimes, what I see people doing is the high level of expectations. Now, First Timothy and lays out all the qualifications for elders, deacons. Sure, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying the extra stuff we add to the plate. That's not necessary. It's not from the scriptures. So that's what I would say is what kills too, is just these high expectations that are unbiblical, that are just added. And I would say that even if you're a church member listening right now, Pastor's Appreciation Month, I mean, that's why I'm glad we're having this conversation. I think that's the biggest thing people need to remember and recognize, is that they're human too. And that's why one of our slogans now, do we serve female ministry leaders? Yes. We have different contexts and options for that. But one of our taglines that we've used is for sons and servants, to stand in the gap, to remind them that their identity is not placed in their ministry title or role, that they are a son. And I think that's one thing that congregations forget, is that this is a man, that is leading our church, but at some level, he's a son. He's not, he has flaws. He's going to fight those battles too. And so it's a tough balance to carry, all that weight.
We're fortunate here at Christian Outdoors to have quality companies supporting our mission. And Mueller Optics is a perfect example of this. Since 2007, Mueller Optics has had one mission: to bring the passion of hunting and shooting to everyone. Mueller Optics' aim is to offer top-tier rifle scopes that won't break your budget, making quality optics more attainable for enthusiasts like us. Now, I started using Mueller Optics scopes last season. Not only was I impressed with the cost of these scopes, but the quality of the glass and the ease of operation was as good or better than other brands costing 3, 4, 5 times as much as the Mueller Optics scopes do. Whether you're building the rifle for the hunt of a lifetime, an ultimate whitetail setup, or trying to make your 22 perfect for small game hunting and plinking, Mueller Optics has a scope for you that will outperform any other scope in its price point. And to further help Christian Outdoors, if you use promo code COP for Christian Outdoor Podcast, COP35 at checkout, you will save 35% on your purchase. Just go to MuellerOptics.com to find out more. And on that, Clark, is that something came to mind when you were speaking on your rant earlier, which was great. And that was this. In congregations, churches, and it's a multiple denominations that fall under this. And I'm not going to try to name them, where they hire the pastor on a year-to-year basis.
Mm-hmm.
He is working out of fear constantly.
Yeah.
It's hard to be honest with the Holy Spirit and with the people. And I'm not saying they're being dishonest. I want you to hear me to the end of this.
Oh yeah.
When you were in constant fear that you could be fired any minute. Now I know that any other job out there where you punch a clock, same way, right? You can be fired any minute, but this is a whole different game that you're in, right? So we're not even going to make that comparison.
Yeah.
But knowing that you have a contract that goes year to year, and in a small congregation, the average church size in America is 150 members or less. It's around 150. If you were to do something that upset 1 or 2 people, you show up Sunday morning and they tell you that you've been dismissed, and now you don't have a home, you don't have a job. It's just, there's a lot of stress there because of that. I would like to see churches, and if you're a deacon, elder, or, stewardship leader in your congregation, I want you to think about this, consider this, to consider multi-year contracts with the guys that you hire, right? Once they've been there a little while and you feel good about them and you feel like this is a good fit, give them a multi-year contract, say 3 years minimum. We know we like you, Clark. We think that you're the person God sent to us to take some pressure off of you. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you a multi-year contract, so we don't have to do this every year. We're going to pay you X amount of money, with X amount built in cost of living increase. It's done. The relief off of that from the pastor's perspective is huge. And it's also relief to the church. We don't have to do this every year.
Yeah.
Right.
I think, sorry to interrupt. I think one of the biggest issues with stuff like that is we're trying to bring the kingdom of the world into the kingdom of God. If we are trying to always manage a pastor, look, accountability is one thing, but I've run into this at churches too, that I've worked in, where it's, if you're always under the gun, you're always having to put a quota. I mean, this is not ministry at that point. I'm a hired, consultant, if you will. I'm no longer a pastor over your heart, and you can't quantify ministry. And so I would say, even too, consider dropping it. Look at your bylaws, see if it works. Maybe that's a radical push for some churches, but I would say consider that, because I think it will drain and suck the life out of your leader and send them into burnout, and you're not going to get any result that you want.
Right.
If they're
Right.
managing, like that. I
Yeah.
just had to add that 2 cents in there.
And I love your use of the word quota there. I haven't used it there, but I love that. We say, well, how many people got saved this year? Well, we had 13 members, 150 member church,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you had
Mm-hmm.
3, that's great. But to
Mm-hmm.
some of the deacons, it's like, well, we should have 20.
Mm-hmm.
How much did our budget go up this year? Well, it should be doing better. It's kind of like college football coaches now.
Yeah.
If you don't win a national championship every year, we're going to fire you.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no patience. There's no
Yeah.
understanding of how it works, how ministry works in your community. Your community could
Mm-hmm.
be a stagnant community. It could be
Yeah.
a community that's declining in people living there. The demographics could be on a downward slope, and you're expecting
Yeah.
to go on an upward slope. You got to be realistic, and so a lot of that's educating the congregation, right?
Yes.
Because you don't want the congregation to feel stagnant, because then
Mm-hmm.
evangelism's out the window, right?
Right.
But you also, if you're in a decline, if you're in a mill village that hasn't had, where there's more vacant houses than there are field houses, how do you expect the church to grow? You're not
Mm-hmm.
you're not being realistic. Conversely, if you're in an exploding growth area, do you really want your church to grow faster than you can manage?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You don't want 200 visitors every week. We don't have enough coffee. What are we going to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to go down to a Velocity Church because they got a bigger coffee pot, which
Mm-hmm.
does happen. Realistic expectations are huge. And one thing I learned while we're doing this, when churches can't complain about anything else, they complain about how little you visit. Always. When everything is going great, they feel like when you have your meeting about pastor, they're doing their annual evaluation or monthly evaluation, whatever it is. How many people did you visit this month? There's always that. And I'm like, really? You didn't see all the good that happened. You haven't seen any of the good that's happened, any of the good that's happened, any of that's good that's happened. It's the evaluations always focus on what you need to do better instead of praise of what you have done. And when I see that, what I see is people who don't have any authority at work. They get on a board at church and they want to have some authority. They want to have a voice. And it can be poison to a church when that happens. So one recommendation I make to any pastor listening is just keep a log of who all you visit, how long you're there, how often you go see them. Then when they say, "What did you visit?" you just pull out the piece of paper. Well, on Tuesday, November the 7th, I visited Betty Sue, was there 38 minutes. And then I left there and I went to Bill Snyder's house, and he was out in his garden. We visited him. You have a log, shoots them down. And also it keeps you knowing that you haven't been to see Betty in 3 months. Oh gosh, I've seen all these people, haven't seen Betty. It's more for you to make sure you're not missing people, but it's also it's a good exercise.
Yeah. I think that's great. And I think too, it tracks how things are going in the church. I mean, I think that those are kind of tools that I think leaders should take. And I think one of the issues too is pastoral positions oftentimes centralize every bit of the ministry to themselves, not on purpose. Sometimes the congregation does that, but that's the importance of deacons. It doesn't have to be pastor so-and-so every single time visiting. It could be a deacon. Yeah. I think that's where churches can get in trouble, is we've created servant positions. I mean, Paul and the early church, by the power of the Holy Spirit, they created church positions for a reason, elders, pastors, and, deacons, and these different roles with different gifts for different areas of the church to be built up. It doesn't have to be one man. I think we in America have done that. We've put it all on one man.
Agreed.
And that's what's kind of killed some guys. So I think the plurality of leadership is there. And I think that's why, ministry like what we do, where we just take guys out and they do something simple all day long. Even though I've shared at the beginning that our rivers are technical, I mean, that's a difference maker to them, just to have a day with nobody bothering them. I always try to tell them, unless there's something serious, give your wife my number, give someone my number, because if something's serious, I'll let you know, but I try and have everyone cut their phone off. We don't need to be attached to that for the day.
Leave your phone in the
so
truck. We're going fishing.
Mhm.
And I do that when I go to the golf course.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have it on do not disturb, but I'll check it in case there's something going on. I just look, nothing, put it back down.
Mhm.
And I just want to get away, and when
Yeah.
I'm in the deer stand, I do the same thing, put it on airplane mode. And I want to be present.
Yes. That's the issue too. Presence.
Yep. You got to be present because your mind doesn't rest from the noise if you keep the noise on.
Yeah.
Right. And so to be present, whether you're on the water, waiting, floating, you're in the deer stand, or listen to a bunch of beagles run rabbits, just be present. Don't have your mind running all over the place thinking, well, golly, I should have called Clark before I came and told him, I'm thinking about him. I hope his, that his surgery is going well, or that he's healing up with blah, blah, blah. You got to be present there in order to really recharge. So having said that, if somebody wants to come to HighGround Outfitters for the day, how do they do that?
Yeah. So we specifically set up our ministry to be something where it's accessible as far as financially. So for the time being, the Lord has told me that day trips should be free. So our float fishing trips are 6 to 8 hours long, anywhere in that range. We offer lunch on those full day guided trips. If you're like, hey, I just want to get out for a couple hours, we're going to provide snacks, drinks, cokes, all that. But that's how we set up our day and structured for a day trip. Day trips, you can go onto our website and you can book a day trip. On our website, we do Mondays and Fridays. So knowing
website open over here, so I'm gonna look at it while you're doing it. Okay.
Yeah, it's under the trips tab, and so if you look at that, you'll see that Mondays and Fridays on our Calendly link. That is the way that we book them, and so we know that most pastors are off Mondays and Fridays, and they're the most easy day to take off typically anyway. So we offer those Mondays, Fridays. We are starting our first retreats next year. We'll have it at Watauga River Lodge in May of next year, and so we'll do a 2-night, 3-day experience. That one, so for retreats we will charge, but we try to keep the cost low. So day trips are free for pastors, ministry leaders, nonprofit ministry leaders. We do offer our trips for Christian business leaders. So if you're a Christian business leader as well and you're wanting to take a trip with us, we do ask that there's a suggested donation, which is $500, which is those donations go into our account to allow us to do these trips for free for the ministry leaders. So it's tax deductible and all those things as well.
All right. Okay. And Tuesday through Thursday, you're doing regular guiding trips.
So I can. I've had a couple companies interested. Right now, the guiding industry is a little all over the place, but I will do them if they ask me. I've had a couple I've had to turn down recently, just for busyness in our own household. So I am a licensed guide though here in Tennessee, and then I am, like I said, I'm a student director in Johnson City at a church.
That's right.
And so so that's where a bulk of my time is. If it's not being family, it's at the church or it's on the water. So I really don't have a ton of time to give to other businesses out there, but I'll do them.
All right. So so I'm going to go here. And by the way, it's highgroundoutfitters.org. And that will be in the show notes as well for anybody listening. I'm going to hit book now and see. Oh, you got Calendly.
Yeah.
Not a fan of Calendly.
Hey, you got to do whatever you got to do when you're getting started.
Do what you got to do. You do. Otherwise, your phone's ringing off the hook. Not everybody has it clean. They can do all the booking for them, right?
Yeah.
All right. So next month. Okay.
And my availability has probably gone down a little bit. We've had some bookings take up.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. You're booked up for a while. I already have a trip planned to go fly fishing on some private water in Cashiers on the 21st of November. Literally looking for that, but I'm just going to click on one and see what happens. So you just click on it, select a time. So
it's always going to say 9 a.m. It's always going to say that, but we could get started at 8 or whatever.
So somebody come from out of town is going to have to come the day before, spend the night, get some lodging somewhere, go to Waffle House, get the it just left me what it's called. The big thing.
Grand Slam. What's it called?
Yes. Get the Grand Slam.
Denny's.
Get the Grand Slam, but don't get the hash browns because we're Southern boys. We get grits. Okay. Just be very clear. We don't eat taters for breakfast. Okay. Sorry. I'm just saying, you got to be pulverized corn. All right. So, get there early and be prepared to spend the day with Clark Bartee on the water. That looks really exciting. I'm going to take you up on that. I am probably not till spring, but I'm going to take you up on that and come up there and fish with you. I really
Please
want.
do.
I've never done a floating fly fishing trip. I've always waited.
Oh, it's
I'm
so
really
fun.
excited to try that. I'm really excited to try that. So you got the little thing you lean up against in the front of the boat, and
Yep. That's exactly how you're supposed to look.
yeah. That's very technical. That's how Pete fly fishes. I'm a little better than that, but still. Clark, this has been great, man. What a great conversation. So thank you for joining us here on Christian Outdoors. Again, I'm gonna put your website in the show notes, but tell the listeners how they can find you. You have social media accounts and how they can find you and things that.
Yeah, so we're not super active on Facebook. We do have an Instagram. It's HighGround_outfitters. That's where we post some of our fishing pics. That's where we post some of our videos and content. But that website that has all our contact information, and my cell phone's on the website, so you can always contact me that way as well. But here shortly, our website's being updated, and we'll have trips available for next year. We're going to do a few retreats, and so you'll be able to see that.
Awesome. Clark Bartee with HighGround Outfitters. Thank you for joining me here on Christian Outdoors, buddy.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.